Hello, hello. Oh, it works.
Look for the good in everything.
I'm going to invite you to stand up for a moment. We had this massive dancing last night, didn't we? Who was dancing last night? Oh my gosh. Can we make it a little louder? And maybe listen to the words. It's very helpful for this presentation to listen to these lyrics. Who knows these lyrics? Listen, they're easy.
Look for the good in everything.
Look for the good in everything.
Look for the people who will set your soul free.
Come on, I remember you moving last night. That's not this.
Until it's done.
Look for the good in everyone.
People done gone crazy. People done gone mad.
We're actually giving a little time for more people to come
the
in.
Superpowers we all have.
You've got
We were
superpowers.
born to love, not hate. We can decide our fate and look for the good in everyone and celebrate all our mistakes if there's a silver lining.
Okay, are you warmed up? Are you warmed up? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Go, move. Move, guys. Doesn't matter where you
You're
are,
a good
you're alive.
soldier, choosing your battles. Pick yourself up and dust yourself off and back in the saddle. You're on the front line, everyone's watching. You know it's serious,
It's
we're
a
getting
short
closer,
one.
this
Take
isn't
advantage.
over. The pressure's on, you feel it, but you got it all, believe it. When you fall, get up, oh, and if you fall, get up, hey, hey. Tamina, mina, sangalewa, 'cause this is Africa. Tamina, mina, hey, hey, waka, waka, hey, hey. Tamina, mina, sangalewa, this time for Africa.
Move, come on. Change your state of being. You can do it, it's your choice.
Listen to your God, this is our motto. Your time to shine, don't wait in line. Y vamos por todo. People are ready.
Thank you. Guess what? Our change of being, our physiology is the key. Oh, that worked out nicely. Our physiologic key. Our physiology and the change of state is the key. Have a seat. So our state of being can change from moment to moment. Many times we feel like we have that choice of changing our state of being. And actually, we do. But many times, because of wounds and because of traumas and because of modern culture and because of pressure and anxiety and all of the things that we think are important and because of our beliefs, we don't know how to change our state of being. I'm here to talk about a particular, people call it a tool. I call it like I'm more of an assistant to a sacred medicine. I'm more assisting something that's been around for millennia. Psychedelics can profoundly change your state of being. They're a class of psychoactive substances that can produce profound, non-ordinary states of consciousness. Altered sensory experiences, sometimes they're visual, auditory distortions, altered sense of time and space. Last time I did a ceremony, it was with a corporate guy, a finance guy actually, and he's like, what time is it? What time is it? Like, you don't need a clock. You know, there's this thing about this construct and concept of time, and it's not important. And yes, it's important for some contexts, but it's not important in all of our beingness in all contexts. We've just given it too much importance. Profound changes in perception, mood, cognitive processes. There's enhanced emotions that are allowed to unfold in these altered states of being. Emotional releases can show up. Memory recollections of a time where you don't recollect your memory. How about those early years? Who here knows that most of the childhood development and importance is between the ages of 1 and 5 years old? Raise your hand. Were you aware of that? There's massive research around that. This is not, shanti, woo-woo stuff. This is a reality. So what if those traumas, what if those wounds are in those age ranges? How do you access that to heal it? Because how can you do anything if you can't notice it? Well, these medicines will allow you to look at that. So other things are, I don't know if you saw, but in the back, I haven't done a PowerPoint, by the way, since I left academia many years ago in my past life. So creating this PowerPoint was a thing. But then I found this tool and I was able to create this psychedelic thing behind. Isn't that cool? Can you see it? I was super proud. So there's thanks. I needed all of your help to do this, I'll tell you. So there's shifts in thoughts and patterns. New insights can show up, kind of like adult insights. Like, wow, that happened to me when I was a child, when I was adapting, when I needed to do what others said because I needed adults for survival. But now as an adult, oh, that doesn't make sense anymore. I don't have to say yes to anything anymore. Does that make sense? All of a sudden, you've got new insights. Then you could also have mystical experiences. We'll talk more about that in a moment. There's ego dissolution. This would be a part of a mystical experience. In that ego dissolution, you lose that individuality. Why do modern culture humans have so much ego? Do you guys agree that a lot of people we know have a ton of ego? Raise your hand. Like a ton of ego. Even our parents and our grandparents. So we're really programmed with stuff that is outdated. Right? Comes from our family, our grandparents, and then the Industrial Revolution. And then, so we've lost this sense of tribe, of collective. Therefore, now we've become so individualistic that the ego has just become bigger and bigger. Another example would be parents that say to their children, you are the best. Or in sports, for example, you are the best. You are gonna be the best. And what happens is the child gets programmed into not being part of a collective where the best would be the best for all. I'm the best. That type of thing. So ego is a big deal in modern culture, and psychedelics help with that. So when you dissolve your ego, by the way, it's scary stuff. It's not for everyone, and it is for everyone who's brave enough, in my sense. This is in my experience. Everything I share here, by the way, is really to give you or share with you the experiences that have helped me through my journey, and I'll share a little bit about that in a moment. And it is to give you tools and shortcuts, because my path has been long, in my opinion, too long, too drawn out. So also this sense of connectedness with others and also with nature. We are really designed to be in connection with the other beings that are nature. Nature is being, earth is a being. It's a live being, do you agree? There's life, come on, it's a live being. So, and everything that depends on nature, all of us, we're all live beings. Then there's also this possibility of having this pure, I've heard this over and over, pure sense of love, of openness, of freedom, of expansion, of consciousness. I'm gonna breathe. Oh, let's all breathe. Breathing is a beautiful thing when working with consciousness and working with psychedelics in particular, because breath is life, and breath also brings us back to center, brings us back to I'm okay, this is my journey, this is what I'm going through. As I'm sharing right now, I'm sharing full doses of psychedelics, by the way. I'm not speaking about microdosing at this moment. So well-known psychedelics, by the way, they are non-addictive. They bind to the serotonin centers of our brain, and therefore they're not addicting. I have experience, I have lost count, the hundreds of ceremonies I have experienced. Ayahuasca, peyote, mushrooms. And I don't think you see me like all over the place and neurotic. People will say, people that know me will tell you that I'm probably one of the most balanced humans that they know, which is kind of cool because psychedelics have a bad rap that you can go crazy or neurotic and things like that. So just to say, and I say it with humility, but I thought it was important. So the classical natural psychedelics are psilocybin, which is actually mushrooms. They were coined magic mushrooms. They're natural occurring, and there are numerous varieties and experience and types of magic mushrooms. You probably have them in your country. Many of you probably even in your backyard, because I know some of you live in these beautiful places that have them in your backyard, and you might know about them, you might not, but they are all over. There's a whole mycelium network under Earth. Do you guys know that? There's a network, so we're talking about network. There's a mycelium network there. Then we have ayahuasca. Ayahuasca was my first teacher, literally my first teacher. It's a brewed mixture. How in the world did that happen that a root and a plant, ayahuasca and chacruna, were actually placed together and cooked and boiled? And how many species of plants are there in the Amazon? And then that happened. It's a mystery. Some people say they know how it happened. I don't believe it. It's one of those mystical mysteries. And they've been used in ancient cultures for many times. Mescaline, I was actually born in Mexico. And so they're naturally found in the south of Mexico. Well, I say Mexico, but there's borders. There are obviously also in Native Americans. These borders are also constructs and concepts of modern culture, in my opinion. So peyote, San Pedro, and other cactus. So imagine, these are medicines that are out there in the natural world. You pick them, you dose them, you take them, you expand, you grow, you evolve. How magical is that? Really think about that for a moment. And then you have the classical synthetic psychedelics. So LSD was discovered in 1938 by Albert Hofmann, a Swiss chemist. And by accident in the 40s, he saw the power of it as a psychedelic substance. We'll talk more about that as well. There's others. There's DMT. I'll go to the DMT one, which is the substance that is used in ayahuasca. Well, actually, that is in ayahuasca. So DMT is naturally found in ayahuasca. Then we have other psychedelics like ibogaine or iboga, and that is a root from Africa, basically in Gabon. And it is what I have understood in my research, and you guys, please, if you know of more of that, the most powerful psychedelic. It has been incredibly successful for addiction, by the way, heroin addiction, cocaine addiction. Success rates are about 70 to 80% with ibogaine or iboga. And they have been traditionally used in spiritual traditions and rituals, and now are being used also for addiction. Then there's salvia, I call it salvia, very short lasting. And the 5-MeO-DMT, the classic toad medicine that's also now being synthesized. Super powerful, 20-minute journeys, but you literally think that you've been away for a century in 20 minutes. So it's life-changing, life-transforming. I don't recommend that anyone takes these psychedelic or has these experiences without proper guidance or proper not only information and knowledge, but guidance. So I wanted to speak about the neuroscience of psychedelics because it's you guys. I think you'd like to hear a bit about the neuroscience. You agree? I was like, do I talk about the neuroscience? I'm so in the thick of the experiencing, but let's do it. So basically, there's increased connectivity. Psychedelics enhance communication between brain sections that function independently. So all of a sudden, they're connected. So what does that create? It creates a feeling of being interconnected. Okay, so that would be something that they've discovered as far as the brain. This one is the newest one. It's super interesting. It was discovered in 2010, 2012, thanks to new brain imaging. Thank you, technology. It's the reduced default mode network. So the default mode network would be kind of like the tower of an airplane kind of guidance thing. What do you call that? That tower that guides the planes? The control tower, thanks. So it would be kind of like the control tower has these particular exact logical guidelines. This is what you do, this is how this plane goes, and this very structure, very much a grid, very organized. So that would be the default mode network. It was created for us to survive. We needed to have a very strong default mode network when we were out in the jungle trying to hunt, and we had to pay full attention. We couldn't be daydreaming at that moment, right? We had to be really clear, really sharp, really like that. But we're actually not being eaten by tigers anymore, are we? Out on the road. Oh, come on, that's a joke. Are we? Jeez. So basically, it's kind of useless. The beautiful thing about psychedelics is that it reduces the default mode network, and it's actually called the ego network. It's quite rigid, it's quite linear, and it's like that fight path. Oh, I even put my little thing there. So it's reduced, and it's thought to contribute to experiences of unity with the world. So non-linear, and you lose the sense of self, like self-consciousness. How are people thinking about me? Who here is worried that all these people, me, I'm older, right? So I see a lot of young people on their Instagram just taking videos and things of themselves constantly. We're really designed to be radiating from the inside out. Radiating our gifts and our love and our energy from the inside out. But many times, part of technology is doing this, right? So it's a sense of identity. Am I pretty enough? Is my makeup okay? Am I well dressed? How's my hair? Etc., etc. I just did it, actually. I asked the guy when he did this, is my hair okay? I'm like, oh my God, what a programming. What a programming that we have. So here we go. Neuroplasticity. Some psychedelics promote neuroplasticity, actually most. I put some everywhere because I know you guys are super analytical, so I want to put some and maybe and perhaps. But the reality is that most psychedelics promote neuroplasticity, and you guys have heard about the term. It's the ability to form new pathways, new neural connections. There's a ton of new research happening with regards, this is all new research, which is super exciting, regarding dementia and Alzheimer's and all of these other really, really difficult conditions that people are living with, so that they can promote new neural pathways. So they can rewire itself for more adapted thinking. Also, it disrupts the rigid neural patterns, like these boxes. This is what is, this is my belief, this is the paradigm, this is what I learned, and this is it. Anytime somebody says you should, this is a key. Anytime you hear somebody says, well, you should da-da-da-da-da, or I, believe that da-da-da, it's more like, okay, but that's your belief. Does that mean it's true? Or maybe it's a story from your grandparents. Does that make sense? Something like that. So it's really cool. The neuroplasticity piece is really cool. It also disrupts prediction and sensory processing. So it interferes with how the brain predicts and processes sensory information. So that contributes to the entheogenic effects. What is entheogenic? It used to be hallucinogenic. But actually, it's been coined by people in the Western world that became more attuned to the indigenous cultures. They coined it entheogenic because it has profound effects on consciousness. So already Western culture, since the 50s and 60s, were trying to somehow honor the indigenous practices of spirituality with ancient medicines. So the invitation is to really change our language and to not box psychedelics into a hallucinogen experience, brain experience only, as an invitation. So, yeah, so many times you have altered perceptions of time, color, and sound. Like that guy, like, what time is it? Oh, but what time is it? You know what I mean? 2 minutes had gone by. It's like, all right. Emotional processing and block memories. So again, I've already talked about this a little bit. There might be an activation in the amygdala and other emotional processing centers that are still there in the unconscious. And they facilitate this psychological flexibility because, and this is actually a lot of research about this, if you're able to dive deep into and be aware of the trauma, of the wounds, of the, by the way, not all stress creates trauma, but all trauma creates stress. Does that make sense? So what is trauma? Well, trauma is something that is still impacting us in our daily life, in our behavior. And it's kind of either an open wound, like when you have an open wound and you're like, oh, it's sore, right? Or it can scar over. When it scars over, it becomes hard and it can't grow. Scar tissue does not grow. So what does that mean? A lot of people get hardened. When we talk about hardened criminals, where do they come from? Probably from trauma that has been unresolved or unhealed, things like that. So anyhow, it is such a beautiful way, psychedelics, to go into what are those wounds and those traumas and those things and those experiences that happen perhaps in childhood, perhaps in early adulthood. Bullying is a big thing, by the way. I work with a lot of particularly men who have had bullying in school, and it's very traumatizing. Sexual abuse in women and men is there. It's still stigmatized, it's still right there. And the reality is, and I'm gonna share about these types of things that I work with because it's important for you all to know. We all have that in our family. Alcoholism, drug addiction, right? Mental illness. All of these things happen. I found out that my great-great-grandfather was murdered in the Mexican Revolution. And I saw the photo of where he was murdered. I mean, does that impact, do you think, our lineage and my lineage? What do you think? Does that impact? There's a lot of research that says that it does now. This is not woo-woo anymore. Ancient traditions and cultures have known this for many years. How do we break those patterns of wounds and trauma and behavior so they don't happen again? By being able to look at the wound, the trauma, the behavior. Which is a good tool? Can it be mental? If it got stuck in our body when we were so young and it's unconscious, can we mentally, through psychoanalytical therapy for 20 years, really heal it? I don't think so. Like, it's just not working, right? It's just not working. So, yeah. So emotional processing, block memories. However, and I do want to do this disclaimer, the exact mechanisms are still under investigation. There's more research needed to fully understand. This is all about modern culture, research at particular universities. So here, this is so exciting. After I shared all of that wording, this is actually the new brain scans. Isn't that so cool? Come on, guys. You can do a sound like, whoa. Whoa. Ah. To actually be able to visualize the thing, right? The new neural pathways, the new connections, the new communication between things, the new liquid. It also looks like more fluid and liquid, right? Because things when are fluid are liquid, that's when change can happen. When things are rigid like ice, chuk, is a block. It's very hard to change. Psychedelics can assist in creating liquidity. I call it liquid in my non-scientific language when I work, because people get it. When they have a ceremony or they have work with me as a guide, and they're down and they're sobbing and they're expressing their full vulnerability of what happened in their childhood or with their brother or sister or whatever, or a teacher or whatever, and they're in liquid state, it means they're in that tender emotional state. Does that make sense? And so this brings a lot of that liquid state that we're so longing as humans. Because if we can't feel liquid, if we can't feel, then we can't really thrive in our aliveness. And maybe we just don't know that we don't know. Maybe we're just in the status quo. I have a friend who's an engineer. He's known me and my work for so many years. Every time I speak with him, it makes me feel sad and a bit angry. He says, but I'm content. I don't want to be content. I want to thrive and be more alive than just content. Does that make sense? Who here wants to like thrive and be more alive than just content? Say, ah, yes, exactly. Me too. Oh, time. Okay, microdosing. I know you guys are probably really interested in the microdosing aspect of it. However, I'm gonna make it short because I do wanna go into the other portions, and you can always call me about microdosing. This is the one slide. It's preliminary research, meaning that there is a lot of stuff happening. There were some placebo research papers done that said, oh my gosh, it was a placebo, then there's others. So it's really out there. It's not 100% proven. My sense, in my experience with the higher doses, is that it will absolutely, and with people that I've talked with, enhances creativity, cognitive flexibility, improve mood, which will improve everything, right? If your mood is improved, your state is improved, it'll improve everything. You agree? Oh my gosh. Increase focus. But there are more comprehensive studies needed to establish that the full understanding. Why haven't they done more studies on the microdosing, and why are they focusing the research in all these institutions and scientists on the other? We'll see now. We'll see now, but we want to talk now about ancient practices. I really want to invite you to combine, integrate the two, the science of it, but let's look at the ancient practices. I'm very excited to share this. So indigenous cultures globally have used them for millennia in spiritual and healing rituals and ceremonies. They view them as sacred. They have an intention for them, and they connect with the divine, with nature, and the spirit world. By the way, they're not dogmatic. It's not even that these ancient and indigenous cultures are, some can be, but like Santo Daime is quite religious, but there are, for the most part, non-dogmatic. It's kind of the medicine takes over, and whatever happens, they trust in what happens. Does that make sense? So there's not a dogma attached, which I personally love. They connect with the divine nature, the spirit world. They connect with themselves and to their community. This is key also, and we'll talk more about what is key. They don't call them psychedelics. They call them sacred medicine. They call them plant spirits, teacher plants, and deities, right? They give them the names of deities as well. And nope, they don't use them for recreational use at raves. At a microdose at a rave. No, they don't use it like that. No judgment on my part, by the way. This is not a judgment. I'm sharing how it goes and how it is and the history of it. And boom. Check out what AI found for me. How cool is that? Thank you, AI. I had never used AI before. So I'll just have you guys take a look. So imagine in Africa, we have the iboga that I said is the most powerful psychedelic medicine that there is. Then we have the peyote up there, is Central North America. We have ayahuasca in the Amazon with these vines and da-da-da. These are all the natural ones, right? And they're everywhere, everywhere. Since when? Since when have they been around? Since when? Oh my God, that's the cactus of peyote, by the way, if you've never seen it. It's very beautiful. It takes a long time for that cactus to grow. There is particular laws in Mexico where you cannot take the peyote and take it home with you. That would be illegal. So what we do, because I have been to the north of Mexico, spent months there without water, just like basically in the desert, without any water, satellite communication, or anything, with a fire, hunting for peyote, that's how they call it, and doing ceremonies to enhance and increase my consciousness. I spent a month and a half there in April of 2020. Who knows what was happening in April of 2020? Yeah, it was a hard decision to leave my sick mom in Mexico City and to do this kind of quest of kind of this knowing, I know what's gonna happen. I know how much this lockdown, this pandemic that we don't know, we're so unsettled. And that was kind of the calling of it was actually an ayahuasca ceremony that directed me to do this. So the way we do it is we take out only the grandparent peyotes, which are the big ones, only the top, and then we seed them again. This is with permission. It's a very sacred practice. We don't just come, harvest, take. That's not how it goes. And whatever we take, we consume on the spot locally. Don't take it home. So there's consciousness also required in these practices. This is so cool. Since the Ice Age, 16,500 years ago, there's already been evidence of humans taking psychedelics. Was there internet in the Ice Age? It's all over the world. How did people communicate about these practices? What is it about our own humanity, human experience, that we've forgotten that this is part of the gift that Mother Nature has given us? Why isn't it sorted? Oh, do you see what I mean? What is that? And then look at these beautiful sculptures from the Mayan civilization. We could go on and on and on. I could have gone for like 5 slides around that. But yeah, there's depictions, stone depictions, Mayan depictions. Here, it's very interesting. It is through an enema, because it would have the psychedelic effect quicker. Can you imagine how cool that is? And this is beautiful Maria Sabine. She's from Oaxaca. We'll talk with her a little more. So the purpose of their psychedelic use was spiritual connection, guidance, entryway into other realms, emotional and spiritual healing and medicine. So ancient cultures and ancient indigenous tribes, and I have many friends now that actually still work the medicine, right? So this is not from the past, this is also from the present. They do not make a distinction between emotional work and spiritual work. They go hand in hand. If you have an emotional blockage, it means that your energetic channels, because we are energy, your energetic channels are blocked. So if you have an energetic channel blocked, you're gonna feel an emotion. Let's say grief. Let's say a loved one died. Ooh, you feel it in your body, right? Raise your hand if you feel in your body grief when someone passed away. Raise your hand. Do you feel it in your body? It's like, oh my God. And then what happens is there are no grief processes in modern culture, like a year of grieving. Like with the Mayans, they'll bring in the 3 women that are the criers of the tribe so that everyone can cry and grieve. And people will go into full grief states and they'll be taken care of. I'm talking wailing on the floor. If they were in the middle of illness, they would take them to a psychiatric ward. Right? But this is the human grief. I loved you so much. It pains me so much. I can't imagine living without you. That type of grief. So in any case, emotional and spiritual growth are not separate. You go through the grief, you go through the anger, you go through conflict mediation circles, for example, things like that, so that you can open your channels again and connect to the divine. Does that make sense? There's no space to connect to the divine if your emotions are blocked. So I want to make this distinction because it's for me, very important in what's happening now in the Renaissance. Also, adulthood initiations. So in ancient traditions, people had adulthood initiations. Oh my God, I looked and I saw 20 seconds. They have adulthood initiation. So initiations into adulthood mean that you have a child that is dependent 100% on adults, and they have this wisdom, right? And what is it? Well, guess what? Now you're an adult. How can you initiate? Well, you can initiate through plant medicine. We'll give you insights. Now you become an adult. So many of the people that I work with, doesn't matter the age, are still living in child ego state. It's a little sad, right? So an adult ego state would not have drama, would not have this, I take it personal, would not have all of these interrelationship conflicts. Most of companies and organizations, the issue of, I think it's like 60 or 80%, I saw some statistic, of the issues within companies are interpersonal. Well, guess what? If you do your emotional work, your own emotional work, you do your energetic work, you don't have to go super wada spiritual. Come to ceremony and you will, but do your emotional work, you know? Do your tools, get your tools, do your personal development work, and all of a sudden, gazillion amount of those personal, interpersonal conflicts will disappear. Because for the most part, it's not personal. Do you agree? Mentally, we know this. Raise your hand if you know that most conflicts are not personal. It's more about them. We know this mentally, but sometimes we're like, but yeah, it kind of was. They don't love me. Or, well, it's actually your dad that didn't love you. And you're projecting to your boss, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, I could go on and on about that for 40 minutes. So initiations are super cool. And because we don't have a path for initiation, it would be great to have them. This is a great way to have an initiation. And then personal growth, insights. This is super important. There's community bonding and social cohesion. So they utilize and still use, and I'll share a little story in a second because I was like blown away. They share the shared psychedelic experiences to create a sense of unity and shared purpose. We all as humans have a longing to be in service to the collective. Why? Well, in the more basic sense, because we're mammals. We're just collective beings, right? But in the more conscious senses, I really do want the best for others. But modern culture has taught us to be individualistic and, you know, don't let them copy you and win-lose community and competition and da-da-da-da. There's such a tension between our real essence of being and what modern culture tells us is right and is the way to be. Well, it's just a belief. It would be so cool if we all work together. I find in the little time I've been with you guys that there is a lot of team energy in this type of space and conference, and I really appreciate that, by the way. And in many others, they don't. Like in the financial sector, forget it. It's about me. That type of thing is what I've seen, and it's so painful, and then they come to ceremony, and they are absolutely needing healing. So then, the community setting can promote harmony, empathy, cultural preservation, and identity. These are beautiful, bright principles that we want. We desire empathy, harmony, peace. Who wants peace? Harmony, empathy, be listened to, being heard to, harmony, cultural preservation, and fun, like we had last night. Throwing big globes around the room and things like that. So also learning and knowledge. So insights into the mysteries of life, death, and the universe. We had a conversation yesterday here, and we were speaking about that, right? So it's innate in humans, and I'm sitting here, oh wow, I'm at a tech conference, and people are talking about death. This is so cool, because it's innate in humans. Why would anybody be different? We're all the same. We have these existential questions. So these experiences also help for that in teams. Okay, so now why? Why would you want to believe any of this? How about, I was talking to Neringa, and thank you so much, Neringa, for this edge work. A big applause for Neringa to bring this topic. It's courageous and brave and amazing, and I asked you already if it was okay if I could share that she's sat with me in ceremony. And there was some sort of shift that happened, and she called me in August and she said, you know, I want you to come and present at the Build Stuff conference. I think this is now something that needs to be done. And boom, a week later, Forbes magazine showed Sam Altman. Anybody know Sam Altman here? That's funny. Anyhow, and here we have this other guy. I didn't put his name there because I imagine you know who that guy is. And then we have Dr. Gabor Mate, who's become really a leading authority in trauma work and all of this. He's a doctor from Canada. He's in his 80s now. He wrote a book called The Myth of Normal, and people were asking him, oh, so how do you use ayahuasca in your trauma work? And he's like, what are you talking about? And then the next book signing, how do you use ayahuasca in your... What are they talking about? He's like, oh my gosh, I'm missing something he thought. He talks about this a lot in his podcast. And basically he went and held space for ayahuasca, and then he said, I was such an imposter. I was terrible with my wife. I was terrible with my children. My children were scared of me. I was a enraged person. I was a great doctor. My patients loved me, but at home, I was a hellion. And then ayahuasca just, boom, put me in my place. I purged all night, and I realized I have this wound of not feeling safe because he was a Holocaust survivor from Hungary. And so he had all of this trauma and all of these things. He talks very freely about that. So anyway, I wanted to share about Dr. Gabor Mate because he's quite well known now in the trauma world and the personal development world and addiction world also, by the way. And then Sting, needs no introduction. Amanda Fielding, she's called the Countess of Psychedelics. She's from the UK. You can read up about her. She's amazing. And Richard Alpert, who then became Ram Dass. Who's heard about Ram Dass? Okay, so he's like an extraordinary spiritual teacher. He was one of the ones in Harvard in the 60s, late 50s and 60s, that was doing the psychedelic research with Timothy Leary. And then off he went to India and became a spiritual guru. How cool is that? All of these guys credit, and there's more, of course, they credit their experiences with influencing their vision, creativity, personal growth, and insights into life. And I didn't go even into the artists. You can imagine the amount of artists, right? So in his own words, Sam Altman here on October last month said, let's read it together. It was one of the most transformative things in my life. I think I used to be like very anxious, unhappy person. It changed me in a lot of ways. I think a big one though, is I feel like a very calm person now. That has been very super helpful to me, not just from a quality of life perspective, but also I think, to work hard, on important to me stuff. So I'm very grateful for that. What I get from this, work on hard. So this work is not for everyone because some people really don't want to work hard on seeing themselves. That's the reality. But he did. And important to me stuff. Do you think he was talking about AI? Yeah. I think we have many things that are important to us besides the work, right? And if the work then coincides with the thing to make the world better, all the better. So just wanted to share that, important to me. So stand up and find a partner, please. How much more do I have? It says 5 minutes. Oh, shoot. Okay, stand up and find a partner. Do it quick. You have 1 minute each. Find a partner real quick, real quick. Ready? Look at each other. Look in your eyes. Find a partner. Just do it quick. Do it quick. You've got this. Look at each other. And we have a little bit of time. Ready? Look at each other. Look in your eyes. Take a deep breath. Stand in front of each other. You can do it, guys. Stand in front of each other. Look at each other. Open your arms. Open your heart. This is a being just like you. Go ahead and ask the person in front of you. Raise your hand if you want to go first. Raise your hand. Raise your hand to go first. Ready? Go. Ask the person in front of you. You have not even a minute. You have 30 seconds. You can do it in 30 seconds. Just talk without thinking. Open your arms. Open your center. What is important to you? Go. And just listen. Okay, come to a close and switch. Ask the other person, what's important to you? Go. Remember to open your arms. Notice if you're closing your arms. Just notice yourself. Open, 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 open. Yes, open yourselves to these new possibilities. Bring it to a close. Take a deep breath. Give your partner a shake of the hand, a hug, whatever you want. Whatever feels good. Humans are touch deprived. You can touch a human, it's fine. It's fine. It's a beautiful thing to touch. Oh my gosh, I have all of this to share and I'm not going to right now. It's actually the movement of the 20th century. I can share the PowerPoint of flyer. I do want to share about how the psychedelic movement of the 60s got stopped. It had to do with the CIA. It had to do with a mystical and Life magazine and the CIA. So she was a Mazteca healer, and this banker went to see her in Oaxaca and brought the medicine back, and boom, he was on the cover, boom, of Life magazine. And this was in 1957. So guess what? The CIA wanted to do mind control experiments and all sorts of things. So they did a covert operation and sent a spy saying, oh, we'll give you $2,000. It's like $20,000 of the now. And let's go on another tour to see her so that the CIA could have the mushrooms. Did you guys know that story? It's pretty awful. So then the CIA project, the MK Ultra, it was a super secret experiment of mind control, because there was this huge resurgence of, in the 50s and 60s around, I'm already a little late. Can I go a little over? Thank you. There was this huge resurgence of, in the 50s and 60s, as cultural experiments, and it was at Harvard and with Timothy Leary and all these other really interesting guys about consciousness and the world, and to stop adapting to the system type thing, right? To open thinking. But then the CIA said, oh, we can use this for mind control right now. And they did a lot of experiments with non-consensual testing, not only with prisoners, but with their own staff. And the consequences were awful. And this scandal contributed to that moral panic and criminalization that was during the Nixon era in the 70s, and then it was gone out until now. Until now. So the WHO has said there's an urgent need to transform mental health and mental health care. And the WHO also says that actually defines it as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not the absence of disease or infirmity. So if you get the point, indigenous cultures had a thing. They understood that the holistic kind of intention of utilizing psychedelics, or in this case, sacred plant medicines, in a space with a fire, with the singing, with the dancing, with the chanting, for social cohesion, for love, for understanding, for mediation, for conflict resolution, for communication, is actually what the WHO is wanting. And if we, it shows that they have more offer than simply the next generation of psychiatric treatment. What is my fear? I attended the MAPS conference. It's there, right? So some institutions are the ones that are now in the Renaissance. And I attended the MAPS conference right there last year in June. It was 13,000 people, over 12,000 people. It was massive. And there was this tension between the talks that had to do with making psilocybin more synthetic and the microdosing and of course, the big pharma pieces of it, and also the psychedelic assisted therapies, which are very clinical, right? You lay somebody on a couch, you put the eye blinds on, the music, you have the one human, you hold their hand, and that's it. You're a babysitter. As a matter of fact, and this is very shocking, in the psychedelic therapy trainings that they have, I heard this in MAPS, they're not even allowed to use the tools even if they're psychotherapists, right? It also excludes many people from indigenous backgrounds that maybe already have had you have to have a master's in psychology, social services, so it's excluding a lot of people that indigenous or ancestrally already have had the experience for many, many years. So again, there's more division. As you can see, there's a lot of controversy. And what I did love about the MAPS conference is that many of the researchers that I attended, a lot of the research talks, they were saying that they felt sad. That they felt sad that it was only gonna be limited to the clinical thing, because only within the medical institution is how they could bring a renaissance of psychedelics back, because they had the validity of the medical institutions. But they feel sad about that. So just wanted to share that. In mainstream, you have books, articles, documentaries, and tons of anecdotal evidence. And in the end of life thing, I really wanted to share this piece. This came from The Guardian. It says that when people report mystical experiences, ego dissolving or spiritual, they allow them to change their self-perception. They view themselves as worthy of love. Do you see how the spiritual essence of the medicine can bring the healing of the being, of the self, right? So many times it says that it's a metaphysical belief change. So it's basically ideas about the afterlife and spirits and things like that will help us. But mind you, whether it's true or not, and I do believe it's true, whether it's true or not, it's totally helping people in their deathbed or in those types of situations. So the key is let's not connect, not disconnect. Leading research teachers, you can come to me, I can share the slides. And it's a unique experience each time. And I'm gonna end with this, if it works. You need a love container, you need preparation, experience guide, the right dosing, safe space, individual mindset, and tons of integration. And read this part. And if you just read this part, I will be done. So it's about positive social change. Not only that. Yay, my time's up. I'm so bad with it.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Michelle.